We often define financial freedom as a static number. We tell ourselves that if we can just hit $5 million, or secure a handful of cash-flowing rental properties, we will finally be safe. But the reality is far more sobering. There are professionals clearing 7 figures a year who are still hopelessly shackled by mortgages, elite private school tuition, keeping up appearances, and chronic career anxiety. Conversely, there are those with far modest incomes who move through the world with absolute ease and autonomy. The difference has nothing to do with the nominal value of your bank account. It lies entirely in whether you have built a self-sustaining economic engine. Real-world economics is not about manifesting dreams. It is about recognizing the cold systemic rules of leverage. If you are exhausted from running on a treadmill that seems to accelerate every time you get a raise, this is where we dissect the mechanics of the game. We are not here to discuss motivational platitudes. We are here to analyze how to construct a replicable framework for autonomy. We need to examine why money seems to slip through your fingers, why life-changing opportunities remain invisible, and why relentless hard work so often yields nothing but a quiet, simmering exhaustion. Most people fail before they even leave the starting gate because they do not understand the absolute necessity of systemic redundancy. In economics, expectation dictates behavior. If you do not possess a capital buffer, you are fundamentally incapable of making long-term decisions. Every minor economic tremor forces you into survival mode. You cannot pivot to a new career because you cannot afford a month without pay. You cannot pause to acquire high-leverage skills because you are trapped in a cycle of immediate billing. You cannot walk away from a toxic environment because your dignity is leased on a 2-week cycle. Data from consumer finance studies consistently shows that the vast majority of households do not have enough liquid cash to cover a 3-month emergency. This is not stability, it is a fragile illusion. You are driving a vehicle with the low fuel warning light blinking, too terrified to take the exit ramp and refuel. Your first true cohort of security is not a lifestyle upgrade or a luxury vehicle to signal your success. It is 6 to 12 months of living expenses kept entirely liquid. This buffer is your shield against the unexpected. When you inflate your consumption the moment your income rises, you are actively reducing your systemic antifragility. Once your fixed costs are locked in, your lifestyle begins to host you, rather than the other way around. High income without a liquidity buffer is not wealth. It is simply high-stress survival. You cannot make strategic, long-term decisions when you are constantly managed by the fear of tomorrow. Once you secure your baseline, you must understand the natural gravity of capital. Money does not distribute itself evenly. It flows towards scarcity, efficiency, and high-leverage nodes. This is the structural origin of the wealth gap. The economist Joseph Schumpeter wrote extensively about creative destruction and the reorganization of resources. Most people spend their lives chasing the noise of the market, entering trends at the exact moment the premium has already been fully extracted. Every massive macroeconomic shift over the last few decades, from real estate to platform economies and artificial intelligence, has been driven by 2 variables: structural scarcity and exponential efficiency. Those who position themselves ahead of these shifts are carried upward by the current. As Warren Buffett famously observed, it's only when the tide goes out that you discover who has been swimming naked. In plain terms, a booming economy covers up poor capital allocation. A contraction reveals who actually understands the architecture of value. The highly successful do not possess a crystal ball. They have trained themselves to observe. They analyze how capital, policy, technology, and demographics intersect. As populations age, healthcare and elder services cease to be speculative niches and become structural certainties. As centralized platforms monopolize distribution, independent creators must shift from selling raw labor to building proprietary audiences. When a new technology drives the marginal cost of production to zero, legacy business models are systematically hollowed out. You do not need to predict every market cycle, but you must look at your career or business and ask a fundamental question. Over the next 3 to 5 years, will resources be flowing into this space or draining out of it? Wealth accumulation is simply the act of standing in the path of expanding capital. Hard work determines how much weight you can carry. Positioning determines whether you are running against the wind or flying with it. But even if you recognize a macroeconomic trend, you cannot capture its value without a scalable system. The true divide in wealth is not determined by a single windfall, but by the presence of an infrastructure. A system is an asset that operates independent of your physical presence. It produces value when you are resting, compounds when you are distracted, and maintains its integrity when your personal energy fluctuates. Consider how modern franchises scale. They do not rely on local geniuses to manage individual locations. They succeed by standardizing everything: the supply chain, the operations, the training, and the customer experience. A teenager working their first job can deliver a consistent product because the system handles the complexity. Consider educational creators who package their expertise into digital assets. They do not trade an hour of their time for an hour of billing. They convert their knowledge into a structured curriculum, host it on a digital distribution network, and allow millions of users to consume it simultaneously. While they sleep, their asset is actively working, leaving them free to build the next system. To build an autonomous life, you must understand the 3 tiers of income: selling your active hours, selling your high-leverage skills, and selling scalable outcomes. The first tier is a trap, because your earning potential is hard-capped by the limits of human biology. The second tier is an improvement because specialized expertise commands a premium. But the third tier is where sovereignty lives. This is where your intellectual property, digital templates, software networks, or distribution channels perform the labor for you. Studies on labor dynamics consistently show that a prestigious degree is no longer a guarantee of wealth compounding. The highest financial returns go to those who can produce standardized, highly scalable assets. If you are a consultant, can you turn your methodology into a proprietary framework? If you are a designer, can you build productized templates? If you are an educator, can you construct a self-guided community? Most hardworking professionals are caught in a loop of starting from scratch every single day, signing a client, executing the work, delivering the service, and searching for the next contract. They are carrying water in buckets. Building a system is the act of laying down a pipeline. It is slow at first, but once the structure is secure, the flow is automated. One-off transactions pay for your month. Scalable systems secure your decade. Yet, even the most elegant system will fail if your daily allocation of time is fundamentally flawed. Capital compounds, but so do your decisions, your habits, and your attention. The hidden tragedy of the modern era is not poverty of resource, but the systematic fragmentation of attention. As Herbert Simon noted, a wealth of information creates a poverty of attention. Many professionals earning high salaries are no closer to autonomy than those earning minimum wage, because their focus is constantly hijacked by immediate feedback loops, administrative noise, and status-driven distractions. They are incredibly busy, but they are not building high-leverage assets. Compounding requires uninterrupted intervals. If you pause your fitness routine for 6 months, you do not start from where you left off, you return to the baseline. If you stop creating content, the algorithms reset your distribution weight. If you neglect your strategic networks, the trust decays. The same is true for capital and career leverage. If you allocate your prime creative hours to resolving immediate, low-value emergencies, your long-term equity is systematically suppressed. Conversely, if you protect a dedicated block of time every single day to invest in a scalable asset, the physics of compounding will eventually work in your favor. The deepest wealth gap is not defined by income, but by sovereignty over your calendar. Some people own large, unbroken blocks of focus. Others are forced to live in the margins of someone else's agenda. True poverty is not the absence of money, but the inability to control your own attention. This brings us to the final, and perhaps most difficult, barrier to entry. Autonomy has a price, and that price is delayed gratification. Every financial decision carries an opportunity cost. When you spend capital on a luxury item today, the true cost is not the nominal price tag. It is the compound value of that capital over the next 10 years. It is the negotiation power you forfeited, because you chose comfort over leverage. Most people crave the idea of freedom, but they are unwilling to tolerate the temporary discomfort required to secure it. The moment their income increases, they immediately elevate their fixed expenses to match it. The moment their business shows promise, they rush to buy status symbols to prove they've arrived. They confuse a growing balance sheet with actual risk resilience. In a world defined by volatility, survival is the only metric that matters. Building long-term wealth requires you to prioritize your margin of safety above all else. Keep your debt-to-income ratio exceptionally low. Diversify your revenue streams before you think you need to. Before making any significant lifestyle upgrade, ask yourself, if my primary income stream evaporated tomorrow, would I still be in control? Freedom is not the expansion of your desires. It is the reduction of your vulnerability. The longer you can delay the urge to display your success, the more absolute your long-term choices will be. True sovereignty is not about owning everything. It is about having very few things that have the power to force your hand. The blueprint for repeatable financial autonomy is built on 4 sequential movements. First, establish a robust liquidity buffer to protect your peace of mind. Second, position your labor and capital where resource streams are expanding. Third, convert your expertise into scalable standardized systems. Fourth, protect your time and manage your risk to let those systems compound over decades. Economics is not merely the study of currency. It is the study of how human beings preserve their dignity, patience, and sovereignty in an unpredictable world. An individual's salary is highly visible, but their internal financial architecture is invisible. Industries will shift, platforms will rise and fall, and prestigious titles will eventually fade. But the capacity to identify macro trends, build scalable systems, control your attention, and delay gratification will never lose its premium. Real freedom is not about a sudden windfall. It is like constructing a house. Before you can live in the security of the structure, You must have the discipline to lay down the bricks, one by one, and let the cement cure.